Welcome back to First Things First. Look who's here, Chris Canty.
What up, man?
What up, bro?
Looking like new money.
Hey, something like that. Got a little sauce with the tie, you know. You always talking about spicing it up,
Yes,
CC.
yes, we need it.
You know,
Looks good,
we need
man.
that.
Yes.
I never really know what they're talking about, but I smile and I applaud when it's time. I'm like, nicely done.
Smile and nod, Jenna.
Nicely
Smile
done.
and nod.
But you know football, so let's talk about that. It has been a tale of two seasons for the Patriots defense. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. First 6 games, they allowed over 26 points per game, the worst of times. Since then, in their last 12 games, able to turn their defense around this season, because that's basically what they did.
I think it just starts with something as simple as communication, Jenna. You had a lot of moving parts on that defense with some of the things that took place this offseason. You lost Rob Ninkovich, you lost Jabal Sheard, they lost Dante Hightower early in the season.
Yes.
Logan Ryan was gone after they won the Super Bowl. So you're trying to integrate some new pieces into that defense, and everybody's trying to understand their role. And I think it just took a while. So, you know, Bill Belichick, he looks at the first 4 games of the season as extended preseason and trying to get those guys in those roles and figure out what they do well, what they don't do so well, so you can make sure you call the game accordingly. More importantly, you make sure the design of the defense is that plays to the strengths of the personnel that you have on the field. So when you start talking about the issues that they had earlier this season, setting the edge, not being able to slow down running backs, that's direct reflection of guys on the edge of that defense, Jabal Sheard, Rob Ninkovich not being there. So you had to get Dietrich Wise, you had to get those guys understanding where they fit in that defense. First 4 games of the season, they gave up 18 passing plays of 20 yards or more. So Stephon Gilmore trying to figure out what's going on with that. But since then, they've cleaned all of those different things up, and I think it showed in their performance.
Well, so I would say 2 key things. One is, in addition to what you said, one is, if you remember the game against the loss against the Chiefs, the game that a few weeks later against the Panthers, it was guys running wide open.
Yes.
It wasn't like the scheme was wrong or a guy got beat physically. It was
the scheme. Miscommunication.
That's what I was going to say.
They had put in too much volume of defense. Stephon Gilmore was the only new player. Malcolm Butler had an awful training camp, so the lack of communication led to guys running wide open.
Right, that's the point that I remember one play in particular that we showed from early in the year that it was Stephon Gilmore was confused. The safety tried to communicate to him. He didn't get the communication right. Safety tried to cover him, and all of a sudden guys are running wide open. The Panthers ran a play where it looked like the 2 guys could have scored a touchdown on it, either the lead blocker or the running back they threw it to. So we were seeing that early in the season. That, the practice time cleared up, it would appear. They simplified the scheme, and as Belichick said, after I think the 5th game of the year, like, why would we be as good now as we will be once we've had 60 practices, once we've had, 4 months together? And the other thing, because the Patriots still late in the year gave up big yards, the Patriots got back to doing something that they've done for almost the entirety of this Belichick era, which is just be a dominant red zone defense. That even if we're going to allow yards, what we are not going to allow is touchdowns. That once you get down into the red zone and the area of the field's condensed, we don't have to cover as much ground. We are going to hold you to 3 points. Like, that is something they weren't doing early in the year, and they started doing right around the midway point in the season. To me, that's a bigger difference than adding James Harrison or, Stephon Gilmore all of a sudden just getting better. I think those are the 2 most significant changes.
Can someone explain to me the difference in the discrepancy in this defense between them allowing so many yards and yet so few points? I feel like it's such a difference in numbers, which you don't always see. Usually those 2 are connected. They seemingly are okay to allow as many yards, it's no problem, but they just lock it up in the red zone.
In the last 5 years, New England's defense has been very, very similar. All right, Chandler Jones, basically, he's gone, traded him to Arizona. He's really been their big pass rusher, him and Ninkovich. When you don't have both of those guys, you have to try to come up with a scheme. Also, the reason why they got Stephon Gilmore was so they can play more man-to-man coverage, all right? Match him up with Malcolm Butler, be able to shut people down. Then you can blitz and put more pressure. Blitzing, if you don't have a powerful rusher or an elite rusher, you have to blitz. But Bill Belichick, what he realized is yards in the NFL won't kill you. When you get to the red zone, they play more zone, and their combination coverages, they work because there's less space to defend. And their lack of overall team speed it's not exposed in the red zone because it's less space.
Oh, okay.
So they hunker down. They know what they have to do. You have to throw the ball short or run the ball in against them because you're not going to get a good look in trying to throw the ball to the end zone. I told Nick after watching the Kansas City game that he would change this defense. They're not powerful. They can't hold the edge. They don't have an elite rusher. The coverage guys, they'll start playing more zone until Stephon Gilmore gets up to speed. So these are the normal things that Belichick does. This is every single season. When they were 2-2, I was telling you, don't worry. Nick's like, they're not that good. They're not. Yes, don't worry. He will fix that part. And that's the part that's fixed. And it's also the reason why they're good in the red zone is because there's less space. Yeah. They play more zone. It plays to their strength.
Yeah, if the Patriots are going to be had, it's going to be at the early part of the regular season while they're still trying to figure things out in training camp. But, CC, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about that defense being able to, I guess, respond or being able to have an answer for not having elite athleticism. When you look at all three levels of that defense, you don't have elite level athletes that can be difference makers. So that's why when they get into the red zone,
the guy, and it's not like he's the
most versatile player.
And he was in the middle of it, so he's the guy
Yes.
that's communicating between the defensive front and the secondary guys. So that's why you saw them give up a lot of big plays early in the season.
And if we take the Jacksonville game, a lot of times these Patriots, the Titans game doesn't really, well, you can almost throw that out because that game was a blowout. The Jacksonville game was almost a microcosm for this season. Early on, Jacksonville was having a lot of success with relatively basic stuff the Pats didn't have an answer for. It's play-action passes. They were throwing to their third running back. They were running right at him. By the time the third quarter rolled around, when Jacksonville didn't have a second or third punch to throw, and the Patriots like, oh, okay, you're going to keep trying the same things. Well, now we've adjusted. And all of a sudden, Leonard Fournette wasn't gashing him anymore. All of a sudden, the play action wasn't as effective. They were able to make in-game adjustments similar to how they made in-season adjustments.
And they've been very, very fortunate that they faced Tennessee, no explosive players from an offensive standpoint, and Jacksonville. It's hard to find two teams with less explosive players than those two teams.
Real quick before we go, the one thing about this Patriots defense is they know how to come in and take out your best weapon. Who is the Eagles' best weapon? What's their key here? Who are they taking out? Who are they focusing on?
They got their answer in Stephon Gilmore for Alshon Jeffrey. I think that's going to be a key matchup in this game because if you look at it, the one player that you will point to Philadelphia that's going to consistently win his one-on-one matchup, it will be Alshon Jeffrey. Zach Ertz is probably a close second.
Zach Ertz is the name.
All right, Chris, stick around. Coming up, why are the Eagles getting no respect? It's next on First Things First.
Old Rodney Dangerfield.